Falcons EdTech Tutorials. On this episode, Solving the Assessment and Learning Gap with Dr. Ausman.
Hi folks, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what to do for option classes that you might have 2 periods on a 6-day cycle. I know I teach extra science, and that has 1 odd and 1 even day out of our 6 days. And when we come to the day 6, day 1 flip, I call it, or where there's that repetition of virtual and face-to-face classes, it creates a huge gap between classes where you don't see students face-to-face for up to 11 calendar days. And so I thought about, well, what can I do in the big gap? What can I do for assessment? I still meet my students virtually, but is this an opportunity for me to use assessment slightly differently so that students can do some interesting work that's paced on their own timeline, and also students are able to fill in their answers and you can grade it right here on Teams. And so what I did was set up a kind of robust assignment for this particular group, and I just wanted to show an example of something really interesting that worked for me with extra science, and you could do something similar no matter what class you teach, because basically all I used was PowerPoint. So I'm going to actually create a new assignment. I'm going to do it from existing because I'm going to use the one that I used in 402 without revealing anyone's class names. And I'm going to reuse it from SCE 40102. And it's called the periodic table assignment. And I'm going to put it in my test class, which is just a blank class. Now, students editing their own copy is an extremely important part of this. So what's interesting is that you can have you can upload this by mistake, and then students are all editing the same live document, and that's not something that you want to do by any means. So I've got this here. You can add a rubric. You can add all sorts of things that you want to add, and I'm going to just leave the due date as Monday because that's going to work for me. It seems to be taking a little moment to copy, so we'll just give it a second. Okay, so I've just loaded the assignment into a class, and I've covered up a student name here because in loading it into the test class, I actually realized I can't be the one that loads it and also acts as a student in order to view it and to show you what it's all about. So here's what it would look like for one of my students, and this student hasn't done any of it, so that's great so that you can't see any of the work here. As you can see, this looks like just a regular PowerPoint, except that each of the elements of the PowerPoint enable you to fill in, drag and drop, and do different elements of the PowerPoint as an assignment, and it saves automatically, as you can see up here. It is live through Outlook 365, or the Office features of 365, so that all of student work is actually completed, and then when they are done, they can just click Submit. So I'll go through a couple examples of the different slides for you as we go. So you can see here that on the instruction slides, students can type their answer, or they can drag a movable answer into a particular slot. So for example, if I go here, horizontal rows on the periodic table, and if I wanted to say cupcakes, which is not the right answer, I could just type that right in, and then it's sort of auto-saving right here up at the top. For other things that you could do on the slides is have drag and drop elements. So students would be able to put different answers in the correct slots, and then those get auto-saved as well as they go along in their PowerPoint. Another option in a slide further down is to have students drag the element, or actually is it drag the circle? Onto a particular element, there you go, to say, oh, is it potassium, is it cesium, you know, in it you have a choosing fashion where that students can then circle something, and then that also gets auto-saved on a particular slide. Sometimes students can just type right in how many valence electrons are there. You can just type a number right into your answer, and then that will show up here for the teacher to correct. So there's a lot of different options with what you can do here, and say, you know, you can make it almost like a multiple choice with something visual, which works amazingly well for things like the history curriculum, where you have files and descriptions. Often those are images or charts or maps, or important historical figures. Here in science, You can give a description and say, oh, well, I'm going to, choose the element, and they can, plunk it anywhere in whichever slot they feel is going to be appropriate. This one's going to be the right answer. But you understand how this might work, so that students have a real opportunity to do something that doesn't necessarily have to be written, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something that they have to download it and re-upload to the assignment section. The nice thing about this particular assignment is that students could really, play with it, do it, reference the notes that they've been taking, whether those are virtual or in class, although I tend to use my class time to do really productive work like laboratory work or explaining and going through concepts collaboratively, because I only see them once per week. I think it's really an interesting way for them to use the notes that they're taking in the virtual space, or that they're getting in another way through a flipped classroom, and actually open them up and apply them, and maybe even discuss with their peers in context on Teams, if you're using breakout rooms, if you're using Zoom, or any other kind of programs that you're using, so students might be able to collaborate and work together. Or you could assign it as an individual task, and students have the opportunity to do something like this. I thought it was creative, I thought it was colorful, and I also thought it used all of the elements of this particular unit that are highly visual in a way that is simple for students to do, and also really simple for me to mark. There's only 23 slides, and honestly it doesn't take that long to just scroll down, go through them, and locate any errors. And what I do is just enter those errors into the feedback box, and then students know which slides they had trouble with and which ones they might need to correct at a later date in order to make sure that they're correct. So you could use it as assessment for learning, or you could use it as an actual assessment and assign points to the different slides, and maybe indicate that here on each slide this one's out of 4 or something like that. I understand that this is a very direct assessment. It's not something that's a creative or interpretive in a way that a lot of the social sciences and humanities assignments might be, but it's also, I think, highly visual, which a lot of us are looking for in classes that have a lot of imagery and have a lot of other things, like other forms of representation, whether those are maps or text or images or periodic tables or whatever the case might be. So I hope you enjoyed this short video, and it gave you a little bit of insight. You can also enter your mark right here, or if you have a rubric, you can score the rubric here that says no points, and you can just click return and the students get that. If you do download the entire assignment and then grade it by hand, let's say using a stylus or a tablet to put your actual check marks on it, I tend to just send those to students, one by one on chat, and just say, here's your assignment, it's attached, off you go. And then I'll put the grade here in feedback and hit return as well, because then it's kind of an official piece back to their own Teams account. All right, that's all I have to say about that. Have a great day, people.